All right, we are talking with jcooksnada, otherwise known as Cooks, in the chat. Hey Cooks, can you hear me? I think you're muted. Hold on, let me see if this is a permission thing.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Wow.
Wow. Thank you
Hello.
for that. Very.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I just want to thank you for. I'm sorry, first of all, for playing that voicemail publicly. Usually I have the voice channel muted, so that was totally my bad.
No, it's totally fine. That's the other reason why I wanted to chat. It was just because I was thinking about it, and then I was like, no, you know what? Let me just leave a voicemail here, just slip it right in, like a letter under a door. But then you played it, and I was like, oh boy.
My bad.
No, it's fine. It's fine. But I jumped in because I wanted to share with everyone, so it wasn't just for your ears. But I want to share with chat, like, essentially what the voicemail was about. I feel like, personally, for me, I think streamer culture, and I'm surprised no one has touched on it, but I'm also not surprised for two reasons. One, because your community has been with you for a long while.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I think it has to do with gender. And so this thing of, like, I feel like in streamer culture, there's imposter syndrome sometimes. Yeah. At least that's what I feel a lot of the time. And so I'm curious what you've done to, like, overcome that. And then, I mean, I know a lot of it has to obviously deal with self-confidence and just, believing in yourself. But yeah.
That's not really. That's not really it. I don't know. Anytime that somebody's like, just believe it, just believe in yourself, I feel like that's really generic feedback. I think I think there are some people who can do that easily, and there are other people who just have a hard time, like, willing that, because that's like having the will to do it is a really big part of self-confidence. But yeah, I mean, like, battling imposter syndrome, that's tough in general. I feel like, well, imposter syndrome is feeling like you don't deserve the things that that are happening to you, right? So
yeah,
I don't know, I feel like I battle that outside of streaming.
yeah, same.
Like, I think that's just like a life thing for me. I've always struggled with, like, self-worth and everything, but I think a lot of battling that comes from just self-reflection and not streaming, and taking a break from social media, and, like, reconnecting with friends and talking with people that you can trust to realign that, the perspective that you need. Because that's probably the hardest part for a lot of people, is having, like, a strong network of friends, especially for those who, like, grew up in a tough situation. Like, those social skills are at a little bit of a detriment because they're not as practiced or flushed out. So, like, finding a group of people that you feel like you can conversate with and have a conversation with and be open and honest with is really difficult. Building rapport is really difficult. So, like, just to, I guess, answer the question as simply as possible, without getting into all the variables that I just explained, because ADHD is a bitch. Basically what I would say is, if I feel like I am undeserving, usually I'll hit up James, the Hunger James. Me and him know each other IRL. I've known him for, like, 15 years.
What
that's
a
so
great
fucking
guy.
wild to say. Yeah, James is like my best friend. I've known him for, like, a majority of my life. He is somebody that, like, I would consider my brother. So, like, if I feel like I'm not deserving, even if he isn't a part of streaming, quote unquote, like, he can still help me with the feelings portion of it. And so, if I really feel like I'm out of sync, I would hit him up. but I haven't really countered that. I feel like a lot of the stuff that I've been dealing with has been more along the lines of like trying to figure out how I'm going to pursue the things that I'd like to in the purest way possible without watering myself down. And I think a lot of that came from being too afraid to speak up or talk about things that otherwise are like too touchy, quote unquote, that like people read too much into. And really what it came down to is like I just need to have these conversations and not post them on Twitter is really what it is. Or do like those off the cuff videos that maybe you've seen on Twitter, as opposed to, you know, putting out 240 characters or a Twitter thread and not having people hear my voice and my empathy and all of that. Because it's super easy to make assumptions about people if you're not really listening to them, you're just reading words, right?
Yeah, and I think the point that you're making is very correct. Like, it takes that the interaction beyond reading something through your own lens. Like, you need to hear that sometimes from the horse's mouth, so to speak. I agree.
Yeah, and a lot of these things that like people struggle with, I feel like they're inherent truths that people already know. They just need somebody else to say them. And so like sometimes, I mean, I've even had it where I resolved an issue or like perspective just by talking to myself, which sounds weird, but I think it's a really nice like tool of self-reflection and that I started using like more recently than like talking with friends. It was like a newly discovered, I just need to give myself time away from everything. And my form of meditation is like introspection by asking myself questions. You know, like, Steve, why are you upset with yourself today? Well, I didn't work out. Why didn't you work out? Well, I was tired. Okay, that's okay. Like, why are you upset that you didn't do it though? You know?
Yeah. I do that a lot. I think my meditation time is really when I'm walking my dog, like when we go on our walks in the morning and in the evening. So that's something I always think about. Just like I don't have my phone. I'm not really concentrating on anything else, like not even my day, just like how I'm feeling and being present. And I think that is something I don't do it as often as I should. Like sometimes I'm like, hurry up, Hunter, it's outside. But I think I will start doing that more. Just because, like you said, it's a tool to like ground you. Yeah,
I think that's important, and like, you know that, you know what I mean? It's not like we had to have this conversation for you to figure that out, but it probably helped a little bit, you know, like that's just like a truth, you know. It's just you know you need to do it more, and it's like, how do I accomplish it in a way that makes it more fun for me to do or more accessible is the big thing, right? Yeah, streamer culture, I don't know, I feel like every time we talk about it kind of comes down to like human behaviors, which is natural. I feel like in this digital age, everybody's like sharing opinions and doing things constantly, and like streaming is that avenue that like does it publicly. So like naturally, streamer behaviors and culture, quote unquote culture, is complex and has many reasons for happening, just like human nature or human behaviors.
That was the other thing. I was in I was in Sophirian's chat just today, and yes, you were hearing me also at work. Thank you for making space for me to speak. Because I feel like the other part of streamer culture was the gender part that I didn't talk about.
Oh, sure.
It's just like, not that it's bad, but it is. It's a lot of dudes.
It is.
And it's a lot of dudes not always making space for women, and not in the way that's like, oh, let me roll out this red carpet for you, but it's more of I don't want to like, I'm not trying to like bash or anything.
No, no, no. Just speak what you want, and then we can like elaborate afterward.
It's like it's almost like a playground mentality, if that makes any sense. And how you were saying, like, speaking on being like alpha, and almost wanting to dominate, not because that's what you want to do, but that's just how naturally the world works. And so, and I know you've spoken on this a bunch of times, of like Twitch and the internet are very young places and spaces, but at the same time, it's like, okay, so then when do we grow up, and when do people start checking that behavior? But I also get your point that you sometimes make, that like it's not everyone's responsibility to police behavior, and I completely agree. That also takes energy away from people. But at the same time, like, if we're all, especially now under COVID, like most of us are living online, so
right.
I'm sorry, I just read Silverance. Even listening to a woman, yes. Since most of us are online, it's even more vital, I think, to make that space on Twitch.
Yeah.
And I really see a lot of streamers doing that.
Yeah, I think it's I think that's one of the coolest things about this whole, like, the platform, is that I think, like, when you're talking about policing behaviors, I think it's important to be not policing, but like bringing attention to negative behaviors and talking about them, because that's where growth happens, is those conversations where, like, okay, let's identify this behavior and why it's bad, and what's the impact of the behavior beyond just, this person feels bad. It also showcases that, like, we're not listening to women, you know what I mean? Or it reminds somebody of an experience of, like, an abusive relationship they've been in, like that. Those are impacts of a behavior that are unknowingly attributed to, like, not listening to women or behaving improperly, like in a video game, or calling somebody a bitch or whatever, like, just because you're fucking upset you lost or some shit. So yeah, it's I don't know, it's strange. I think like you mentioned, we're in like the adolescent phase of this whole thing, and when do we start like elevating it? I think honestly it just takes time. I've seen the space change quite a bit over the time period of me streaming, and I think, like, when it comes down to what to expect out of everybody, I think the important thing is to assume positive intent, unless it's like blatantly obvious that this is, like, what the intention was, you know what I mean? Like there was that recent clip and video of some dude who was like, I want you to do this in their chat. The objective is to get banned. You know what I mean? Like that's obvious intention, right? Negative intention. So you can't assume anything positive of it, because that was his intention. He literally stated it, right?
Yeah.
So I think the hard part is being able to like be.
I know what you're gonna say.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you're being able to not everything's black and white, so being able to, like, dance in the gray.
Yeah.
Almost.
And be okay with that. It's really hard because, like, it's so easy to be like, you said this, automatic assumption, you're a misogynistic fuck, like, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it could be their first time experiencing that controversial thing that otherwise would have happened in, like, a regular environment, like a social environment, school, work, all that stuff. But it's happening online now because this is our reality. People are, like, getting socialized online. That's what we're dealing with, so, like, we're in really ambiguous territory. My answer is that we're not going to figure it out, but the more we assume positive intent and try to educate people around that via conversation, as much as we possibly can, That's it. And then also identifying like it's not your fucking job to educate everybody. There are just some people who are not willing to listen because they're not in a good space to listen, and that's okay. You know, it's totally okay to not be in a space to listen. It's identifying that and walking away is the hard part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had to that skill for me came from like my mom. Like my mom is a super stubborn individual who at a certain point in the conversation, if it turns into an argument, there's no like reasoning that happens. I can't have a conversation or do anything about it. So the next step is to literally just be like, I can't talk to you anymore. And now we're done. You know what I mean? Like I will call you back in like 15, 20 minutes. So that's me controlling what I can control. And that's it. You know, you can only do that. But yeah, that's what I would do. That's my 2 cents on it.
No, I agree. It's just hard.
It is. Yeah,
it's just hard. And it's hard because I think I'm not someone to like dig in my heels on something. I think I know now enough when someone is stubborn or set in their ways, like there's no kind of changing that unless they're ready.
Right.
And sometimes they're not. So you just have to, like you said, like step away.
Yeah.
I think it does become harder when, for me, like I get very passionate about things that I care about.
Of course.
And being new to this platform, and I wouldn't say growing, but I'll say it's like being new to the platform. It's just so fascinating to me that so many dynamics of toxicity have remained even with, because there are some women who do uphold, or who are streamers who like do uphold either like a really bad stereotype or just like something that's very toxic and exacerbates the problem that is here.
Can you elaborate more on that? So like, can you give me like a little bit more specifics?
Yeah.
You don't need to mention names or anything, but like the behavior and the impact of the behavior is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah. It's been, I want to give you an example without giving a name. It's been like pandering, and not in a sexual way, not in like, oh, I'm gonna wear like a shirt that has little people, like not that, never that. Sure. But only paying attention to the male fan base. Okay. Or or I've seen or majority like paying attention to the male fan or perceived male fan base, because anonymity is still a thing. Or what's something else I've seen?
Pandering. So like, can you explain the pandering behavior? So what does that look like? Because I'm unfamiliar with what you mean.
I mean, they're not like huge streamers, but the two that I've seen, because they're like, we're in the same circle, but they like, I want to say that's not in a mean way, because
no. Say it in a mean way, and we can elaborate on it. It's totally fine.
Okay. I mean,
because you're not mentioning names, so like we're being specific about the behavior and what the impact of the behavior is, which is important, but not like if we're not associating it with a name, that's totally fine. Like if you want to just share what the words that come to mind first, and then we can kind of elaborate further, it makes it a little bit easier to talk about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. I've seen them like specific, like almost like baby girl voice to, okay. I mean, not almost, that is exactly what they're doing.
So like the uwu voice you're talking about, or?
Yeah. Okay. And to the way that's like very uncomfortable.
Sure.
And I've talked to other like people in their chats who've experienced this, and not in like a joking way, like very in like they're being serious. Like I don't want to say, I don't want to say like sugar daddy in that type of vein, but yeah.
Okay. So they're speaking in a way that's like sexualized and is used to take advantage of.
Yes.
Okay. So well, okay. So my counterpoint to that is that like it's not the people who are willing to participate in that behavior, like it's not really a negative behavior because the impact of that behavior is like people feeling uncomfortable, right? But it's not like what do you think is the negative impact of that behavior, talking in that like ooh voice or whatever?
I'm thinking. I feel like it's just I'm saying it out loud, and saying it out loud, I feel awful saying it out loud.
Then say it.
But it just makes women look bad. Like it's just not.
Okay, so let's elaborate that on further. When it makes women look bad, what is the impact on women?
The stereotype that we're just on Twitch to like get a quick buck, not in like any other way besides that.
Okay, so instead of showcasing talent to get rewarded, appeasing you know, like a male fantasy or whatever is what's giving them money. Okay. Could I put like just a thought in your head related to that
Yes,
that you may not be considering?
Yes.
Basically what I would say is that it could be you looked at as a form of empowerment, because it's more of like a form of control. And like when you're talking about this, my assumption based on the way you're speaking about it is to combat the stereotype that women are on Twitch to take male viewers away, or to take advantage of male viewers. Does that sound accurate at all? Like, does it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, like my counterpoint to this would be like the men who are participating in this and enabling the behavior are the problem, not so much the person who's using or exhibiting the behavior. Does that make more sense?
That does.
What it does is, so the impact of the behavior, the unintended impact of that behavior is it enables toxic masculine reactions to women who are on Twitch with a low-cut shirt or speaking in a certain way or whatever it is, right? Okay. Yeah, so yeah, does that make more sense? Like, yeah, so it's definitely like one of those, it's a multifaceted thing. I think like women on Twitch is I don't know, dude. It's such a fucking weird thing. Like, women who want to be sexy and do shit on Twitch like that and get paid for it, like, more power to you. You know, like, I don't really have a problem with that. My issue lies in the fact that, like, the toxic masculine behavior that is being shown, maybe it's not as under control because they're incentivizing it. You know what I mean? So, like, maybe they're allowed to be a little bit more lewd in the chat or do something that, like, you know, would normally not be allowed per TOS guidelines in a 50-person chat or less.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So I guess, like, to reframe how you're thinking about it, the best thing I could say is really, like, think about the impacts of those behaviors and what it has to do with, like, the rest of the community. And if it comes down to it and it's not on the individual, then I think you're good. Like, I think it's hard to get around that bias, but it does take that practice of, like, talking it out like we just did. You know?
And it's funny you say that, because I was like, I'm a huge supporter, love Megan the Stallion, think she's great. And I think there's I was almost compartmentalizing that idea. Like, yeah, Megan can do that because it's like music, right? It's pop culture. But like on Twitch, that's like no. But what you're saying is computing and is making sense.
Okay,
it doesn't
cool.
matter.
Yeah,
really
isn't it weird how you compartmentalize it?
Yeah.
Because you're like, it's not the same medium, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it kind of is. Like,
It
if somebody did like a music video live on Twitch, like the Sushi Dragon, you know what I mean? Like, it's gonna be. That's it. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely was in that. I don't know. I felt similarly, so I can empathize for sure. But yeah, when it came down to it, like, whenever I had questioned it, it always came down to like, what's the impact of the behavior? And the unintended impact is that you're enabling like toxic masculine behavior on the platform, right? So it depends on, it's up to that person in the chat, like however they're handling it, to permit whatever lewdness or whatever they're like, you know, permitting. And so that's where the real danger lies. It's not that the behavior they're exhibiting is bad, it's that the behavior that the men who are participating in the chat are exhibiting, and then that further goes on to like carry on to other chatters, other people who like have a false perspective on what they think female streamers are. Because if you just Google the word female streamer, it's all controversy, it's all bullshit, you know. So it's not just the men in chat, it's also the impact of like the companies who are choosing to publish articles related to, you know, these things happening, Alinity's nip slip, like all these things that like are not, they don't they commodify sexuality and make it like a incentivized thing. Like, oh, if you are, you know, being chauvinistic online as a female, like it will get you views. Of course it will. But the retention, like the retention data, like the amount of viewers that a female streamer gets and retains, there is Devin Nash did I'll send you this video, Cooks. But he did a whole video about how, like, you know, they don't get to retain as many viewers in comparison to male streamers. And I don't remember what the whole thing was, but it was still an interesting video. It helped me understand it more. And I think, like, yeah, it's one of those things where, like, the more information you have, the easier it is to see these things for what it is.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I don't want to take up too much of your time because you've also been streaming for a really long time.
How long have I been streaming for? 5 hours now.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Well, I mean, back-to-back conversations like this is why I do it. I haven't, well, thank you for not only being like a new person in the community, but like being so brave and calling in and asking about this thing.
Oh, yeah.
And trusting me with the conversation. That's like a huge fucking step. So thank you.
Oh, you're cool. You're fam.
I appreciate it.